And welcome back, everybody, to the first ever DeathStryke podcast. What the hell is a podcast? You know what a podcast is. This is our podcast. Our podcast is going to include everything from Star Wars to movie lore to rants that we just want to rant about that we're not on camera, so a little bit more loose and goose. But today being the very, very first episode, we got to start out with that Star Wars. Of course, we got to start out with that Star Wars. But first, let me introduce the group of people I have with me today. I've got James Armstrong. How you doing?
I'm doing good, James. A little disappointed. I thought this was going to be a POG-cast, and we were going to talk about
or
POGs
Porg-cast.
in the 90s. No, don't go there.
A little sauteed porg.
Well, I mean, if Sean can cook a porg or something, I'd gladly eat it.
Anything.
Cook it good.
Speaking of Sean, we've got Sean Sharp. How are you?
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Not too shabby at all. That was a quick intro, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's very quick.
All right, let's kick it right off. And we are the DeathStryke podcast. We're going to be talking about the fanboys and the fanboys' reaction to Star Wars, The Last Jedi. Not just the fanboys, but what'd you call it again?
This is going to be called the Haters and Humpers episode.
Haters and Humpers. See, that's such a good term because you just got people who just like get like a little excited chihuahua, just want to hump it. Like, it's mine. I'm going to hump it. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
And then that's all they got. Things that you're like, I'd rather spend time with my relatives over the holidays than watch these guys go on.
Exactly.
It was that painful.
Yeah, you on both sides you read about people who are like, I hated this movie, it was the worst movie ever, I can't believe Disney has ruined Star Wars, and the other guy going, this is the best Star Wars movie they ever made, this is the genius of Rian Johnson, and they're both bashing each other and calling each other assholes and dickheads and back and forth like, oh, you're wrong. Who gives a shit if they're wrong or right? It's an opinion and it's a movie, but we're going to rip into them right now with this very first topic, coming right out the gate. We have these stupid fanboys wanting to get The Last Jedi removed from canon. They have a petition on petition.org to get The Last Jedi removed from canon because they didn't like it. It didn't live up to their magical expectations of who's Rey, who's Kylo, who's going to go bad, who's Snoke. Fuck them. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that we ought to change the change.org petition level to actually be a higher number so we can stop getting these weird petitions that come out of nowhere.
I know, I agree.
Like we have the demand for there to be a Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, which I would like to see, but it shouldn't happen because the movie we got was just fine.
And that's the movie we got.
And the movie that was being made was originally going to be a two-parter for Justice League, and it got condensed, and rightfully so. And the same thing with Last Jedi. Look, guys, there's going to be a third movie. Maybe they'll listen to some of your opinions and correct a few things or retcon some few things. I hope not, because I enjoyed The Last Jedi very much.
As did I.
And thought that they made some great decisions with the characters and some of the revelations, and they were right not to give some stuff away. So, to borrow a line from one of our favorite movies, Blazing Saddles, to quote...
Very good movie.
Yeah, probably the best comedy of all time, but I would say we should all heed the advice of Hedley Lamar and just rest our sphincters.
Yes.
I tend to agree, and the movie's been out for a hot minute. It's been like 3 weeks now. It's it's Thursday, 3 weeks later. It's made $1 billion worldwide. It hasn't even hit China yet, and it's made $1 billion. So let's calm the fuck down and get on with it. All right, it happened. Like you said, Justice League, it happened the way it happened. Get over it. You can't go back. The next director, which is J.J. Abrams, can't go back and retcon some things if the story groups approves it. And it is what it is.
It is what it is. The number one thing I want to point out is, seriously, I was listening to both sides. I purposely tried to have a balanced view. And number one, I want to say, what film did these people see?
Yeah, I have no idea.
For both sides. I want to throw that immediately. What film did these people see? Number two, to start a petition to remove a movie from Lucas's...
Yeah, from the canon timeline that
Lucas's
the new
arts. Yeah. I mean, seriously, how arrogant are these snowflakes? I don't usually like the term snowflake.
Yeah, but these deserves it. I agree.
I'm sorry. If this really got your sphincters in a wad or whatever depends you're wearing.
Change your pants, man. Go home and change your pants.
Grow up.
Yeah. Now, this is just me being me. I'm very selective on my movie websites and call me old-fashioned, but I'm not up on all the terminology. What is the proper definition of a snowflake?
It's a good question. I have someone who's
Yeah.
delicate and easily broken, I guess.
Okay.
Oh no, I just graduated in art school.
Oh,
I
what
didn't-
is it? Tell me. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
yeah.
It's someone who is socially, and I quote, awoke.
Oh, woke.
Awoke. Oh yes, James, you obviously are not awoke. Are the
So they're
confused look on your face.
so
I don't
they're
think-
they're more aware than the rest of us.
They're more socially conscious, and thus they do not have a callous, interior. They are in touch with the needs and suffering of all humanity.
So they're overly sensitive.
You can't see
To
this, but
me,
I'm giving the finger to all those people.
I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be awoke.
Yeah, no.
No. The thing
I
is,
like ignorance is bliss, right?
okay,
Yeah.
technically awoke is supposed to be you're aware of the hardships in the world, and you should be aware of what privileges you have living in where you live in the world.
That kind of ties back into Star Wars. There's been an awakening.
Right.
There we go.
But it's great. But the thing
Loose.
is, it's
Make it
become
loose.
that if you say, you had like a hamburger with extra bacon, there's going to be a guy at the school standing next to you. You know, an animal died for that. Yes, I'm aware of that.
And give me more of it, please.
And a truly awoken person would be a vegetarian because you're not a monster. And I go, well, I am a monster. I would rape you. But they look down on that and wear your skin as a pelt. If I was a Neolithic monster.
yeah.
I am
They
not.
also look down on that, but whatever.
I have been counseled many times in my time at the Art Institute. Many, many times. So,
Yeah, I always thought it was weird. Like this, out of all of the schools you went to, your wife decided to teach at that one, which is great. It was a great job.
Right.
But then you go to this art school.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you personally going, those guys have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
Well,
oh my God.
and not to detract from Star Wars, but
No.
you have to understand the
That's why it's a podcast. We can go off rails.
Yeah.
But we can go off rails on that. But you have to understand the mentality of where this petition is coming from. These are people that generally have come from a good background,
Yeah.
with money, with privilege. It did not turn out the way I want. Thus, I want it to change because I want it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And that's really what it is. And the thing is,
Fucking white people.
it's not just white people. I hate to tell you that.
It's people who grew up with a very affluent family.
Usually.
Yeah, usually.
They're not from the trailer park.
Yeah.
Or if they are, they're usually like emo. I cut myself so in places where nobody sees, and I wear too much eyeliner, and I have piercings and green hair.
I was like a third of that.
So was I. I was an angry anarchist. I came from the trailer park. But the thing is, these guys have had very little trauma in their lives, or if they've had trauma, it is the thing on their shoulder, like a giant chip the size of Everest, that if the wind blows the wrong direction, they need someone to give them a hug and give them a non-soy, non-latte, GMO modified, drink.
And and these people are writing the petition going, it hurt my feelings because
Exactly.
it didn't give me the expectations that I wanted in my head.
Well, good. Life is hard.
Exactly. Congratulations on headcanon.
And fictional characters are allowed to go through hardship themselves.
Yeah.
And if a hero can endure that kind of hardship, then it teaches us how to live a better life. And
Through example.
Through example, exactly. So I just in general, I don't understand where they're coming from in talking about the treatment of Luke Skywalker. I thought it was a very great performance from Mark Hamill. I thought
Point number 2.
Yeah, and the performance specifically in The Last Jedi.
He was phenomenal as a performance.
Yeah,
great performance.
Very well acted, and
Absolutely. I still think so.
I went back and I rewatched the very first Star Wars movie from 1977, and I watched most of Empire Strikes Back. I regret to say I didn't finish it. I had to go to bed, but it was a nice. Well, I won't say an end to Luke Skywalker because I think we'll see him as a Force ghost at some point.
You're going to have to now because of Carrie Fisher's situation. So you got to bring back somebody.
Exactly.
So.
But it was, I think, a good example to follow of people looking at a character and thinking, this is a kid who always dreamed of being a Jedi, and he got his wish fulfilled.
I don't think he dreamed of being a Jedi. I think
okay,
he dreamt of doing more than he was. Being bigger than he was.
Thank you for that correction, because in the first movie, you're right.
Anakin wanted
he
to be
didn't
a
know
Jedi.
about being a Jedi. He just wanted to get off
Tatooine.
Tatooine.
Yeah. Later.
But he is someone who always dreamed of adventure,
Yeah.
getting off planet, and then embraced his family history. But sometimes the history does not live up to our dreams, but you continue on, and you just do make the best decisions you have based on how you feel and what is practicable. And with him, he became a Jedi, but the history wasn't quite all there. It didn't live up to maybe some of the standards he had, and he thought, well, maybe I should just burn this whole thing down and just let it all go away.
Perhaps.
Yeah, in an odd way, his motives are not that different from Kylo Ren's, who says, let the past die.
Right.
But again, it's
that Skywalker bloodline that
it is a bloodline. Yeah.
You have Vader or Anakin who went to Vader who was very determined in his one path. Like, you know what? I need to save Padme, and the only way to do that is to become a Sith or to devote myself to the Emperor, which he did, which was very narrow-minded of him, which is what Luke did by killing off the last Jedi temple, if you will. And now Kylo Ren did the same thing. Like, once you get that idea as a Skywalker, you're going to be single-mindedly trying to do that thing. And that's just a repetitive thing that Star Wars has done since 1977.
It's called storytelling.
Yeah, it's storytelling, and it's symmetry and poetry. That's what it is.
If I could just wrap up real quick, I guess into my whole stream of consciousness.
I've got one for the Luke Skywalker too.
I guess what I was trying to build up to is that Luke Skywalker, just like the fanboys we're talking about here, had to come to grips with the fact that his dream came true, and it wasn't exactly what he expected.
Right.
And so it's like, whether it's him and the truth about the Jedi, which is, hey, they weren't all that they were cracked up to be. Just watch the prequels, which he laid out in a very succinct line where he talked about the failure of the Jedi.
Yeah, having Sidious right in their path the whole time.
He was right in front of them the whole time.
Yeah, and they failed.
So but it's okay because he eventually finds a way to help his friends in need.
Hubris.
And
That's what I'm looking for.
Yes, thank you. But he eventually finds peace and finds a way to help his friends.
Yeah.
I hope that in years to come, when these people stop being awoke and start being awake, that they'll rewatch The Last Jedi.
Send all hate mail to Sean Sharp. I'll take it, the heat on that.
Oh, no. But yeah, just maybe in several years or longer, however long it takes, they'll rewatch the movie. And
until episode 9 comes out, I feel.
Oh, God, yeah. But it's a case where...
Or Solo, and everyone can rips on that one for a while.
God, yeah. But just give it some time, and once you get over... whatever your mood is at this moment,
whatever your head canon's telling you.
Yeah, just watch the movie with the benefit of time, and you can relate to it on a different level. Like I said, grew up a little bit. Maybe once you turn 30, you can appreciate some of the storytelling elements a little better.
Yeah, no.
And so, again, just to wrap up, and I'll shut up for a bit, but after a while, bless you. When your dreams come true, you sure appreciate them, but sometimes they're not all that they're cracked up to be. But that is just simply life.
I tend to agree with actually all of that. I will have to sneeze again in a minute, but see if I can get through some of this. People's reaction to how Luke Skywalker is in The Last Jedi is like, oh, he's supposed to be the greatest Jedi of all time. He's supposed to be all powerful. Motherfucker, the last time we saw Luke Skywalker was on the forest moon of Endor, after he just defeated his father. He didn't really defeat him. He kind of did. Vader turned good, and he burned him in the village, and he wasn't that powerful when you compared to other Jedis. Like, we saw him force choke some guards. We saw him do some flips on a barge. We saw him fight Vader. He threw his lightsaber and got electrocuted. He was not the most powerful Jedi. It's like, and I was like, what about all the books? The books are not canon anymore. Throw those out the window.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Lucasfilm has not come out with new books stating this is what Luke did, this is where he was going. After they retconned everything or threw everything out the window and made this new canon, we don't know what he did. We don't know how powerful this guy was. What we saw on screen, the fact that he was able to almost like a physical force projecting himself all the way across who knows how many sectors, right?
Right.
To fight his nephew, who he would have schooled, by the way. Did you see, like, after he did that Matrix move, he spun up, not just got up. He did a little spin. I'm like, dude, there's no way Kylo could have taken this guy. I mean, even if he was there, there's no way.
And of course, we're all going to have our own opinion on how we would tweak the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
But you get back to Luke on Ahch-To when he's meditating, projecting himself. That force pool with that first. By the way, that's the first Jedi. He's called Jedi Prime or something like that. That pool is shaking. The water isn't shaking. Mm-hmm. In order to shake water like that, you have to shake the mountain.
Yeah, that there's a lot of visual cues.
Yes, how powerful he is. Yes.
I was going to have some things to address when he finished. I really want to hear this.
But when people say he's not as powerful as he was in their head because of the old canon they read, who cares? It's not what it is now. No, they'll never make that.
Right.
They'll cherry pick like they've been doing. They'll add people here. They'll add people there. They'll give him powers from this canon novel. They'll give him from this Legends novel. Fine. you're missing the point of the legacy of the Skywalkers when you're picking on one thing that you did not like. That's my rant.
There you go.
Of why people need to check themselves before they
wreck themselves.
Exactly, over the whole Luke Skywalker debate. Like, oh, he wasn't portrayed like the Luke I know. He was exactly like the Luke we know.
Now, on that, since the books are no longer there, one of the reasons I never kept up with the books after...
They were so bloody. Like 250 novels.
Was just also the fact Luke's power got so ridiculous. It got to be... he became the Mary Sue that everyone accused Rey of being.
Exactly, yes.
To the point that if this is ridiculous, there's no threat of him losing. This is not an interesting story. And once again, I use the big word with the capital S, people. If you look at the way Luke lived, remember, Lucas was influenced by the tales of the Shaolin monks, samurai and all that. And the Jedi in the movie canon were they samurai like? Yes, but they were also very Shaolin like. Like they retired from the world.
Yep.
When Luke saw that he was going to be a flaw always there, he removed himself
much
from
like
the
Yoda
world.
did,
right?
When he realized, this is the back in. You have to watch the Clone Wars to understand what Yoda's decision was. But same thing, he removed himself from the situation and said, "I have to go in exile. This is done. We're done here."
The ripples of the effect of my actions are going to be catastrophic.
Exactly.
So he was actually living the classic arc of a warrior. He started out as looking for adventure, wanted to become something better than adventure, i.e. a knight. He wanted to gain wisdom, and then in Jedi, he confronts the dark side of his past.
Yep.
And eventually he retreats from that dark side going, I'm repeating the same mistakes that they did in the past.
Yep.
And I want to break that cycle.
Well put. That's what I was trying to get at earlier.
Yeah.
And, as Jeff Bridges said in Tron Legacy, this is his game, and sometimes the only way to win the game is not to play.
That's right. That is absolutely correct. It's good to have different minds, because when I watched The Last Jedi, and by the way, The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Wow.
Everyone's like, oh, Empire. I grew up watching Empire so many times it lost its luster. Like you get the reveal so often, you're like, I know it's coming. Plus, I was like, I don't know, like 6 when I saw it. So to me, the greatest thing at the time was like, I don't know, picking Ace Ventura, right? I loved comedy. And then growing up with this modern age, I guess you say prequels and all, because it's modern age, because we're still getting films. I didn't like the prequels then. I like them better now for the arc that it does, not the acting. Don't get me started on that. But
actors are only as good as their director.
Also true, unless it's
Thank you.
Ewan McGregor, then he's just good all the time. He had a crap script. He's like, I'm gonna make it work, and he did.
There are universal, exceptions.
I know that's true. But having the Last Jedi just blew me away from the visuals to this. I got the story immediately when I saw it. It's like I know exactly what this movie is, and it is perfect. So I don't understand.
No, I think James and I both, as movie fans, would have our own critique.
Yeah, everyone does.
Sure.
And I have my own critiques on the movie. Don't get me wrong. There's some stuff that I was questionable how they did certain things.
In fact, toward the end, we should probably talk about some issues we had with the film. But no, I think I would back up everything you just said. I mean, what we're all confronting as movie fans is always a balancing act between the stuff we grew up with.
Yeah, there's nostalgia of it.
But being able to watch those franchises move on. And I've said many times I have no desire to rewatch The Force Awakens because I think it was.
I tried watching that the other day.
Okay.
I got through after that first scene on Jakku. After they take Poe back to and then the TIE fighter scene coming back and Rey or Poe and Finn crash the TIE fighter after being hit. After that, it just plays naturally in my head, and I didn't need to watch it again. I'm like, I know exactly what happens. There's nothing exciting about this anymore. Versus, I saw Last Jedi 3 times in the theater, and every time was exciting. I was like, this is phenomenal. This is amazing.
Exactly. Force Awakens to me didn't have very much tension. It was a very predictable movie that borrowed too many cues from the very first movie. I prefer calling it Star Wars because I grew up with it being called Star Wars.
Yeah, no, we know what you mean.
To have people understand what I'm talking about Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yeah.
But this one had legitimate tension with the starfighter scenes, not knowing whether or not Luke had turned dark at some point.
Yeah.
The fact that they fucking killed Snoke. It
again. Spoiler.
Full 3 weeks, guys.
Full
3
spoilers
weeks.
again. Yeah, it's
there'll be title on the description say spoiler talk. Last
2018
Jedi.
Last Jedi was so 2017.
So 2017.
But it's like
4 days ago.
just to insert my own movie fandom. It's It's like I grew up with Batman '89. I
Right.
love Batman '89.
Watched
But
that one the other day too.
yeah, beautiful movie. It is the movie that I have watched the most in my life, and it will continue to be. I rewatch it just about every other month at a minimum. But at some point, you have to think to yourself, just because it was important to me as a kid, does not mean the character of Batman can grow and evolve and have a different aesthetic, a different motive, a different mood. And I love what they did in Batman v Superman, where he was finally a veteran Batman who maybe had gone off the rails a little bit. It was a
To me, that was the only redeeming quality of that movie. But
I'm not going to open that up.
No.
But
I like Batfleck.
yeah,
I like him.
Yeah, but it's just that I'm not going to just wax nostalgic about Michael Keaton all the time or Jack Nicholson all the time. I mean,
You can still have those,
exactly.
and enjoy the other ones.
Exactly. So again, and what I love so much about the Last Jedi, to wrap up my point, is that they finally learned the proper use of meta. And
They did, didn't they?
They did. In that, I think that the character of Kylo Ren has really become such a great force for, no pun intended, but a great force for, honestly, moving on from the previous movies, from the prequels, from the original trilogy. I mean, the most enduring quote from the trailers and to me from the whole movie, now having watched it twice, is "Let the past die."
Yeah, kill it if you have to.
Kill it if you have to. He could not be more blatant, and
that was all Rian Johnson's. He knew going into this film the controversy that it was going to put in there, so he put in lines like that.
Yeah,
to go.
And my hat's off to him.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
No shit.
And
yes.
I would only wrap up by saying Force Awakens was bad meta because you had like quote for quote stuff borrowed from A New Hope and situations borrowed from A New Hope. Like you have a moment where they're in the Starkiller base and the stormtroopers are running down the hallway and they say, "We think they may be splitting up," just like in that first movie. And
Well,
it just takes you out of the movie experience and just a whole other just opens up a whole bunch of negative qualities about the Force Awakens. But I just want to sum up by saying, so we had the bad meta in Force Awakens where they retreaded the past. Last Jedi was a nice use of meta where we had a character who actually was representative of the need to honor the past, borrow from the past, and The Last Jedi borrows from virtually every Star Wars movie.
Yep, all of them.
But it's not afraid to do its own thing, change things up a little bit, give us some legitimate surprises and a good movie experience, and again, kill the past if we have to, and move on into something better.
No, I agree, and I think that's a bold decision that Lucasfilm did by giving him a whole new trilogy, Rian Johnson a whole new trilogy. So we'll see what that is going forward.
Now I'm just going to state. Eventually, I want to address the issue of the insecure masculine comments.
Let's do it.
That I was. But
Let's knock it out.
Before I do that, I need
Very
to say,
curious how this is going to go.
Oh yeah, I have a rant on this.
Okay.
So. I would just like to say the one thing that everyone forgets about Kylo Ren when he says "kill the past," if you have to kill it. Remember, he did something that his grandfather didn't.
He took over the effing galaxy.
He took over the effing galaxy. His grandfather couldn't do it. He was asking Luke's help.
Yep, to join me and we can overthrow the Emperor.
Because he was so hooked to the Emperor. So I just want to point that out. Kylo Ren is an actualized person. He went further than his idol grandfather, which is what we should all strive for. I mean, the whole punk ethic I grew up with was don't have idols, kill your idols, become your own idol.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Yeah.
And you
I'm
don't
gonna start
see
putting
that in movies.
photos of myself on my wall. Oh, I already did. Lots of them too.
Lots of them too.
Like 12.
I just want to point that out. It's really important to my tirade. Now, a lot of the haters came from this. And I hate to tell you this, guys. This movie was not marketed to the Gen X guys. I'm a Gen Xer, okay? This movie was not marketed to us. So these guys who have a lot of issues, when I say, man, you have a lot of issues, because they were saying this was a feminist propaganda film.
I heard that too.
Social justice movie. Now, I went in. I didn't drink. Now, normally, I like to have a
I had a
drink
beer
to
that
watch
first
movie.
one. Yes. Man, I had to pee so bad.
I went in with a notepad, and my wife was drinking because she was like, there's no way I'm going to like this film. She doesn't like films.
Right.
She was cheering. Was like, could you...
I can't remember. Did she like Repo the Genetic Opera?
She doesn't like any movie.
Okay.
Technically, she doesn't like movies.
Oh, no.
That's such a good movie.
Well, she's literary professor, big. Anyways, we have arguments about story, the story with capital S, all the time.
But she loves music, so it's all fair.
Yeah.
Oh, music person. Now it makes sense.
So, as long as there's no lyrics, she grew up only listening to classical music. So,
It's all good.
but anyway,
Continue.
people went into this. I have to say, they said, "Well, and I took notes. I'm the guy in there." Writing notes. The poor staff at the restaurant thought I was writing orders. They kept walking by to see if I was asking for something. I was at the Alamo, so you know. But
Good atmosphere, but yeah, I'm not a fan of the dine-in movie experience because you purposely have people interrupting the movie for you.
I like it. I cook all the time, so if someone else is cooking, I'm happy.
Very good.
But the thing is, I saw some of what their points were. But guess what, guys? It's not 1977. In 1977, there was not even a phrase for sexual harassment. Number one. Number two. There are women in our military, right?
Yep, lots of them.
So you're saying you have problems with women in authority positions. So you have problems with some of our
That's right.
military staff. And I'm sorry.
I know where you're going with this.
The thing is, my wife pointed
If you don't,
out,
I'll do it.
Yes, a lot of command structure were women.
Yep.
But when they mutinied, there was women with them mutinying.
Yeah.
When the ones that were against the mutiny, there were women there. And the thing my wife points out, who was dying? There were a lot of women in this film dying alongside men.
Rose's sister died in the bomber.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fighter pilots and all that. So of all these
That
guys,
A-wing survived though. That's
well, he's lucky. He's an alien.
she. Yeah,
Okay,
the female A-wing pilot and the alien A-wing pilot.
So-
I can't remember his name.
I thought she got blown up in the...
Maybe in the hangar. Maybe she died in the hangar.
In the hangar she got blown up by
So much have happened to that movie. Like
A lot happened,
But that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't notice only one noble gender throwing themselves on grenades to save everyone. No.
fucking everybody did that in the movie.
Everybody did. That's the whole point. Everybody's supposed to be the hero. Everybody. And if you can't believe everybody can be the hero, you live in a very, very small universe. You should stay in your mom's basement.
Yep.
And keep in mind, when you have issues about women in power, you have a mom who brings you food. If you have a problem with a female police officer or a female plumber, whether someone carrying a gun and flying a fighter jet, dude, you're not in 1977. And that's where a lot of these X-Gens are coming from. It's like, well, when I was a kid, it was all men in the military. Yeah. And,
How long ago was that?
And? How old are you now?
Yeah.
Did you also know there's no Santa Claus?
That's right. And no Easter Bunny.
And, well, there may be now. But,
you never know.
But the thing is, sorry guys, I went in there with this kind of like, I need to be hyper aware, hypersensitive to see where all the opinions are coming
Right.
from. And I'm like, guys, I'm sorry. The world's changed. Zip up your pants. Stop watching porn.
No.
Well, no.
Accept the fact that there are going to be women.
We have needs, man.
That's right.
But if you're really worried about working for a woman boss, most of my bosses in my career, in all my careers, have been women.
I've had nothing but pretty much women bosses.
So if you have issues with this, at this time of the century, and I'm a guy that loves ancient history. I'm a guy that puts on armor and jousts.
Yeah.
You think I would be the most chauvinist pig in the world, and I'm like, if you have problems with women.
You have women jousters too.
I have
Just-
women jousters
who
too,
can-
and squires, and they do everything. The thing is,
Yeah.
I can't get past this little bridge in my brain going, it's the 21st century. You don't want your mom treated that way. You don't want your sisters treated that way. You don't want anyone you care about treated badly.
Yeah.
And yet you're perpetrating
Yeah.
that environment and that psychology. Now, did this kind of tick off? Did it at some time feel like, well, they're getting a little points. They're getting a little points here and there. Hey, you know what?
Every film does that.
Every film does that. It's like, when I was a kid, it was racism. They put a lot of black actors in powerful roles just so people could open their eyes and go, hey, maybe a black person can be competent as a doctor.
Yep.
Because they had one doctor for a whole hospital that was black. One commanding officer in every military.
It was
Just
black.
one.
Yeah, just one. Yeah.
No other minority. So if you had an Asian, you couldn't have a black. And if you had a black, you couldn't have an Asian. So it's like, guys.
That just reminds me of Pearl Harbor
Well,
with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
He was the only black guy in the movie,
Right.
That you can remember.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but he was playing a heroic part. But the
Yeah.
thing is, it's the same syndrome. We now accept seeing men, black men, people of color in power. Why not? Because it actually happens. Oh my God, women are. So for me, it's like you guys were really, really looking
yeah, they were just
with
looking.
a jaded view.
Yep.
Just because women, oh my God, a woman can carry a gun. Oh my God, a woman can fly a jet. Oh my God, a woman talked down to your man crush and said, "You're reckless. I'm not telling you."
Yeah.
And guess what? If that was a man commander, he would have said, "You're reckless. I'm not going to tell you."
Yeah. So that piece of Star Wars that we saw is exactly how it should be. It is in modern military.
You had a lot of insight onto that, yeah.
Yeah. So Deshaun, you have a commanding officer who is telling a lesser grade officer something, and that lesser grade officer is getting a little attitude. The senior officer's like, shut up. I don't have to tell you jack.
Right.
And they don't. I don't care if he's the hero of your story. If this is the plot that they're going with, they're trying to make it as realistic as possible. This was perfect. You have a vice admiral speaking down to a just demoted
for insubordination.
Yeah, exactly.
For insubordination.
And I still say he should have been demoted twice.
He should have been demoted twice. He should have been got down to, like, I don't know, lieutenant, right? So you have these people who's like, he should have been told the plan. There was no point of not telling him the plan. He just cost the fleet all of their bombers. The entire fleet of bombers they had. Not to mention the support fleet that was with it.
He's lucky he didn't end up in the brig as soon as he landed.
Yeah, exactly. Or shot out of an airlock.
Right.
Or I know he's a plot character. We get it. But people who are like, he needed to know the plans. You know, he was the hero.
Well, you know, if anything,
what?
If anything, I mean, she was lenient on him because she kind of telegraphed to him that there was a plan, because she had that line from, like she actually quoted Leia back to him. It's like, Leia always said this, and then he just kind of repeats the phrase back to her as like he knows it. Like, well, yeah, he knows it, but he didn't really listen.
Right.
And like she more or less, again, telegraphed to him, you know, Leia's kind of backing me up on this, so just trust us.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing.
Cool your jets, man.
Yeah.
Cool your jets.
Yeah. So.
I think the big tell for a lot of these wounded Gen X men, and as a Gen X male, it's like one of the things you have to say at the art school. I'm X, so I can comment
there you
on
go.
X.
Yeah, you go.
If you're not X, you cannot comment on anything.
Right. I got it.
So being from that generation and having that chromosomal pattern, I will point out the one thing that they held on to was the line, and here's the tell. That's her. You know.
Yeah.
That's
That's the vice admiral from whatever battle he quoted.
And it's almost like implying, once again back to the
like he never met her.
Right. Or the fact that she was a female.
Yeah.
Now, I do have my own criticisms of her. One, she looked like she was wearing an evening gown when everyone else is in military uniform.
This is where I'll gripe on Lucasfilm for a minute. And I only do this because not everybody reads the books. The books are the supplemental information for the movies. The movies are first and foremost canon. That is the canon of Star Wars, is the films. You go from the films, you go to the books, and you go to the comic books to get those little details, information that you might have missed. Now, they pulled Holdo out of the Leia novel. Leia novel came out kind of quietly. I mean, everyone's kind of but it's young Leia. It's like it's 3 years before she takes the plans, and she loses Alderaan. 3 years before all that happens. And you get to go on her journey to how she becomes a princess from Alderaan and all this, because she's adopted and blah, 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 blah. And you meet Holdo's character as a young girl. And she's a very eclectic, sort of hippie style, from a different sort of world, not grew up in the power like the Alderaan family or the Leia Organa family. Like, her family in particular was very weird and quirky. She's basically, and I've said this a lot, she's the Luna Lovegood of the Star Wars franchise. At least that's how she is in the books. And the reason she was wearing an evening gown dress, or she had purple hair, is because in the book she's a quirky character. She never had the same uniform as everybody else. She always dressed the way she wanted to. She always never had anything matching. She literally was the Luna Lovegood of, like, the description was like, oh, this is a Luna Lovegood character, and it basically was.
Was her now?
But they don't explain any of that in the films. I don't think they have to.
In the book, do they explain her hair?
Yeah, she always had crazy hair.
Okay.
Always crazy colors.
Okay, so she does purposely dye her hair. It's not like her species has purple hair.
No, her hair is always different colors.
Okay, that's curious.
So, but they pulled this stuff out of this canon novel and they put it into a movie, and everyone's kind of like, who the hell is this character? And I kind of have to gripe on Lucasfilm a little bit, because although she's a great character, you have to do a little bit of explaining on this character before you introduce her in a role that she has now.
As pivotal as a role.
Exactly. Now, she did grow up with Leia, and they formed a very tight relationship as children. So I know that. Y'all probably didn't know that. 90% of the fans probably don't know that. So I think Lucasfilm needs to back off a little bit on picking certain characters out of canon books and putting them in a movie. Maybe introduce a planet instead of a character who's obviously made an impact on fans who got butthurt over it. So, or not, or maybe they're doing the right decision. Maybe they want to introduce more of this character later on in a different film or a different format. Who knows?
Okay.
So that's my little gripe on Lucasfilm picking characters that really need to go more in depth with before you bring them into a movie or bring them into a different role in a different movie. But that's just me.
This might be a good point to just kind of transition to stuff that we did not care for in The Last Jedi.
Yep. Will you start us off?
Actually, Sean, you want to go first since you probably have seen it more recently than the rest of us?
What things that we didn't like?
Yeah, it's the stuff you didn't like about the movie.
Okay. Number one, first and foremost, as I said earlier, I thought Luke's journey was what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a classic. They draw upon those classic Jungian memes and Campbellian memes. So yes, once again, big ass. But I would have liked Luke to have been there.
Agreed.
But just the sheer amount of power displays that if he had been there in person, if he had flown there on the Falcon,
Or dug his X-wing out of the ocean.
right, he could have just split Kylo Ren in half.
That's kind of what I was feeling too. Or he was going to take all those ATM-6s and just crumple them in balls.
But the thing is, then
Or something along
would
those
that
lines.
lead to a conflict on what is called suspension of disbelief? I know it's a sci-fi film, but then once again, it worried me that it would get back to why I stopped reading the books.
Right.
He got so powerful, then there was no threat, and if there's no threat, no risk of death, there's no drama.
Yeah.
There's no ethos, no pathos. So I would have liked for him to be there, but the more I have distance from seeing it, the more I like it.
Right. I think that's everyone's conclusion too. It's like it sits and simmers in their brain for a while. They're like, I hate this movie. Well, but I like this. I didn't like that next day. Well, I actually kind of did like that point, you know?
It's the beauty of the Aristotelian model of the fact that you can hold the fact that you disliked an aspect of it in your mind and hold a part that you loved about it in your mind.
Yeah.
And they don't have to conflict.
No, they don't.
But the thing is, people were so invested that, they wanted Grandmaster Luke destroy all worlds. It's like, well, why don't you just throw Cthulhu out there as well?
That would be a good movie.
But it'd become a laughable joke. Is my point if he showed up and just crushed all the ATs.
Yeah, there'd be no threat.
Right,
You're right. There'd be
no
absolutely no threat.
And the fact that the heroes escape to carry the battle on to the next day has meaning. If there was no threat, then all those lives that died trying to escape meant nothing.
And let's not forget, nearly 90% or greater of the resistance is gone.
Dead.
Only what's left in the Falcon is what's left.
That's not a lot of people.
No. So anyone who says, oh, there was no threat to the resistance, motherfucker, they got wiped out. They are gone, essentially. You have Rey. You don't really have Leia anymore. You have R2.
Yeah.
Whatever. You get C-3PO. You got Poe and Finn, Rose, Chewie, BB-8, a handful of pilots. So yeah, you probably got about 12, I would say 15 to 20 people left. Oh, hi, Kat.
20 people that are going to be responsible for stopping what remains of the First Order.
Exactly. And in all fairness, there's probably not much left of the First Order. They did split Snoke's ship in half. Mm-hmm. You destroyed a whole hell of a lot of Star Destroyers. Mm-hmm. So they're also on the ropes. However, they are more organized than the Resistance, and that's been the case through Star Wars forever. Yeah, so let's not forget that either.
That goes to my chief complaint. I think we briefly talked about this last time we met up, which is that, and this is kind of a holdover from The Force Awakens, in that I guess I do have an olive branch to offer to the people who feel like that the new movies are maybe a little too, I guess the word they would use is corporate. And I think when they say that, it's because there is a natural complaint that comes about when you are trying to pretty much sell something that has been done before back to people, when you're when you're regurgitating a type of movie and giving it back to people. And again, I think that the Force Awakens felt like a regurgitation of the first movie, and they could have done more, I think, in this new saga, this new trilogy of having a different dynamic, because it kind of made the original trilogy feel hollow if after the victory over Endor, we once again have, an evil Empire-like organization going up against a ragtag group of rebels. So But again, I mean, not that not that I'm going to complain too much about it. It's just I wish that they had done more
more politics almost in a way.
Well, I do wish that there were more politics, but again, when I watched the prequels, I did feel like I was watching a galactic civil war. the scope of the conflict seemed vast.
Yeah.
And here it's just kind of, again, it feels like a retread of the original trilogy to have a very small batch of resistance against the First Order. I wanted some more scope to it. I think they could have done
And
more
I think I
about it.
discussed this
Yeah,
with you.
we did. So again, but I'm not going to get on my high horse too much about it. Yeah, it was a personal preference that they do something else, but it didn't quite take me out of the movies that we got. But they just could have done more in that department. So minor nitpick, but agree to disagree on it.
Well, with that being said, I'm gonna throw my little bit of hate toward the film. I don't want to see hate, more gripey than anything.
There you go.
And I love this film.
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect. The only scene that really, I mean, everyone's gonna bash the Canto bite scene. I actually had no problem with that.
Yeah.
The political overtones with that, I get it. I mean, whatever. I don't care. The only thing that really bothered me with The Last Jedi, and it's a delicate scene to get right, I feel, is the Leia in space scene. Carrie Poppins,
Super Princess.
Super Princess, Carrie Poppins, whatever. I like mine. I'm Carrie Poppins, y'all. That is hard to get right because I know they're trying to give us as fans the scope of her Force abilities. And how do you do that? Do you after that explosion on the bridge, do you have that ship implode on her and she gets herself out of it by using the Force to push up, like kind of what we saw in Homecoming or Spider-Man Homecoming? Do you have what happened? Do you have her floating in space and coming back to life? I don't even know if she was actually dead. She was probably just unconscious. I mean, what do you do? The way they handled the graphics overall of her floating through could have been done a little differently, and I know in space you're weightless, but things have mass, and I understand that. I mean, but I've never been to space, so I can't say for sure. Pushing like a 400,000 ton object versus you who moves first.
Have you even been to space camp?
No, I haven't been to space camp either. I didn't. I barely passed science class. Yeah. Okay, all right. Let's be fair. But if they would have tweaked that scene a little bit to make her less Mary Poppins-y, less superhero-y, flying through space, that would have been better. But within that scene, that whole scene, that I was like, that kind of does take me out, because I was like, I can obviously tell this is CGI. This isn't like a practical effect by any means of the imagination. Is when you see her in space and she's getting that crystal all over her because she's freezing. Mm-hmm. They zoom in onto her hand, and all of a sudden you see these little particles start moving around her hand. I don't know if anyone caught that, but you can see.
I did see that.
See it.
Moisture molecules.
Yeah, moisture is being forced away from her hand as she's becoming more conscious. You're like, how powerful is she? She's moving these teeny tiny objects unconscious or subconsciously. And then she has to pull herself awake and then float through space without any oxygen. Granted, I know this is a sci-fi film and she was a princess and a hero or whatever. But that, to me, saved that scene. Her floating through space was terrible. Yeah. That's all I got to say about that.
And John Williams is
the score on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Like half.
I wish I could play that over this because it's fantastic.
Half of the appeal of Star Wars is the magic of John Williams.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like I saw a tweet not too long ago. I can't remember if it was something he retweeted, but there's a fellow named Rick Shue who is on the Batman on Film team that I follow, but he's also a big Star Wars fan. And he said something along the lines of, or he said or retweeted something along the lines of, John Williams' score for the prequels is actually a little better than the original trilogy. And I can kind of...
it was more polished.
It was. And so...
you have better technology now. So
John Williams, I mean, if this guy can make the prequels watchable, he can make that Leia scene so emotional and so intense.
Oh, and it was emotional.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So God bless John Williams for helping.
When you realize that Kylo did not, in fact, pull the trigger, it was his wingmates who did. And you see her get sucked out. Yeah. So long, Admiral Akbar. You're done. And yes, it was a trap.
Died off screen.
Sleeps with the fishes.
Sleep with them.
I had to go ahead.
Go on.
That's good. No, that was emotional. Like, oh my God. If they were gonna if they were gonna recut this to take Carrie Fisher out of it, that was where you do it.
Yeah.
and they continued on, and rightfully so.
All of the oxygen left the bridge of that ship, and also left every person in the auditorium when that scene happened.
There's 2 times that happened in that film. That time, and when Haldo flew that capital ship through the Supremacy. Perfect timing. Like, they took the audio out of the theater or the film. That's how the film was made. And then, if you depending on what theater again, some theaters are more picky about sound, like people talking. But the one like at your theater, Galaxy, you could hear whispers being going, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like just like gasping at the exact same time as when Leia gets sucked out the window. Same reaction. You're like, that's gorgeous and horrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
but it was also showing unlike the other Star Wars films, showing a lot more. Once again, it's a sci-fi film. A little more realism what happens when your hull gets breached.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to see. For me, Carrie Poppins, as you say, was something even my wife had criticism with. But I could hear the audience reacting. Like I said, I went in there with the analytical mind turned on.
Right.
I wanted to observe the audience. I wanted to observe it overall. But after I've just like trashed a couple of things, I'd point out for the first time they got lightsaber physics right.
Agreed.
In the big battle scene,
the throne room scene.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So with
Very well done.
We knew so little about the Praetorian Guards. I will not weep for them. But hey,
they were badass, man.
But it's the fact that throwing a lightsaber, turning it on and turning it off to catch it. It's like, yes, you understand how a weapon really works.
Yeah, like, oh, I can't. Just it has a button.
Yeah.
Well, like again, going back to the proper use of meta, like Last Jedi. Another reason why I like it so much is that I had forgotten that as a kid, I'd always wanted to see a lightsaber lit up that way and do that type of damage.
Exactly.
And I'd always wanted to know what would happen if a ship went to light speed and collided with another ship. I had forgotten that those were things that I wanted, and this movie gave them to me.
Now you know.
Thank you.
It's beautiful and horrifying.
Now I've said something really nice about the film. I'd say something bad. It's like I still think they could have had like a droid pilot the ship. But I understand this was a character choice. This was a character. Once again, it goes back to if there's no sacrifice, there's no threat. There's no win.
Maybe the only droids were left were medical droids, and they needed those. We don't know.
Or whatever reason. Maybe she was dying of some disease.
And maybe she's like, by the way, I sold y'all out to the Empire, and the only way to know, I'm going to go kill myself. Now, bye.
Oh, darn, wrong direction. What? No. But it's the kind of the physics that, as James is observing as a kid, you've always wanted, because you sat here and wondered, well, if they could do this, why won't they do this?
Right.
But, once again, my gripe and my number one goal in talking about this film is, on both sides, the humpers and the haters, good God, people, step back. This is a movie. There was always going to be a movie.
It will always be a movie.
It'll always be a movie, despite the mural on your ceiling and on your van.
Yeah.
Well, I guess moving on to one, nitpick about the movie, and I talked about how as a kid you want to see this, that, and the other thing, and even if you consciously forget about that memory, I do think that if I do have to level one, minor grievance against Rian Johnson, it would be that I think that there is this kind of contagious feeling when you're a director of a Star Wars movie that you want to recreate this scene that you remember from the previous film and this, that, and the other. And I feel like going into the Canto Bight scene that he did want to maybe redo the cantina scene from the first movie.
But you can also say the same thing in The Force Awakens.
Exactly. Well, I do. I do.
Okay, there we
Very
go.
much so, I do. And so I do think that at some point, like in
the song in Maz's Castle is called Unjaba, just so you know.
Okay. But like in journalism, there's a phrase called killing your darlings, where you're writing something and you have a line that really works well, but doesn't contribute anything to the story.
Right.
You have to cut that line because it doesn't benefit the story. I think that be it J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson, there are some scenes they have to look at when they're putting their movie together, either in this writer's room or with the final draft of the screenplay or in the editing room, where you have to kill your darlings. And the casino scene was beautiful to look at, and it just needed to be condensed a little bit. But I don't trash on the casino scene so much as I would trash on the little prison escape scene.
With the first introduction to the DJ?
DG,
Yeah, where they meet Benicio del Toro's character.
That was a little weird.
Because for one, the setup to it was just...
It had a more of a Fifth Element feel to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, a little bit.
The setup, or like the catalyst to them being sought after, was because they parked their ship on the beach. What kind of stupid maneuver is that? You're running a clandestine operation. Why can't you just park in the regular parking lot or park in the forest? You park right on the damn beach.
Resistance speeder, lot A, please.
Yeah,
Resistance
It's like
lot A.
It's like they're setting them. It's like no,
they set themselves up for failure.
They're setting themselves up for failure, and so that could have gone away. I didn't mind the like chase scene with the space horses because I'm gonna admit that I thought the space horses were adorable.
They look good. Yeah.
I have a weakness for space horses, I guess.
Foyers?
I forget what their name is, but I was going somewhere with that. But the scene also where DJ is talking to Finn about how everything is a business and they sell weapons to both sides. Good conversation that could have been done in the casino when they fail to find the master code breaker. They're having a drink at the bar. They meet DJ, have a few drinks. He says, I can do what you need me to do. There, you don't need too much more. You don't need an escape scene. Just condense it a little bit and have things happen.
Let's not forget there's 30 minutes of cut footage that will be in the Blu-ray.
But it's just
just one final point, then I'll turn it over. I will also point out though that
9 minutes left of this podcast.
Oh shit! For people who say that the movie is too corporate, I do like how they did give a shout out to how the First Order and the Resistance have to buy weapons from the same people, and is a thinly veiled shot at the military-industrial complex. Thank you very much.
No, I'm hoping that's where you were going to end that.
Yeah, if he didn't bring it up, I was going to. Is the fact that when people want to get preachy about what side they're on, you got to keep in mind
it's a business.
When you pick sides, you better be very sure of whose side you're on. And that was also, once again, the butthurt crowd over the fact that, and I'm just going to point this out, a lot of the women figures, female characters, had some of the best lines.
They did.
Hell yeah.
And I'm okay with that, guys. Sorry, I am.
Like, if you want really good one-liners from males, there's 3 other films that you can go watch. They don't have to be in every film.
Yeah, there's like six movies I can think of.
Or again, you can root for Kylo Ren.
Or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, Kylo Ren. He had some of the most epic lines.
Yeah.
So did Snoke right before he died.
He's only half off, so,
Or was he 100%?
I don't know.
I really got to hand it to him.
Side-splitting comedy.
Oh
no,
that's a dead horse.
We're done with that one. I killed it like a dad joke because I'm a dad.
It's like we're doing Austin Powers one-liners that just keep going and going until they just fade out.
I see. Every time I think one-liners like that, I always think of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where you got Will Ferrell and
I forgot he was in
Daily Show.
Jon Stewart.
Yeah. They had a back and forth with.
I forgot Jon Stewart was in that movie.
So many people were in that movie.
It was like going about. That's right, the Clit Commander. Oh my God!
Oh,
if you haven't, that's so good. It's so good. They were just going back and forth about how. Never mind. Just forget about it. You got to go watch it.
Yeah, something you have to see. It can't be explained.
It can be, but how do you explain it? Like without,
you just had to be there
without rolling over laughing. That's what that's all that is. 'Cause that's just too damn funny. Not typical like old school SNL humor. Perfect. It's good stuff. Well, I think that's all we've got.
Okay.
That's all the gripes I've got for now.
I'm sure I'll remember something else. If I do,
I'll come up in a different show.
If I do, I'll toss it up on the channel.
That'll work. Sean, you got anything?
I think we've
Closing
covered
statements.
I've pretty much said what I wanted to say. A summation is, hey guys, everyone can enjoy the film. If you're really that invested in it, you might want to step back or seek therapy. It was a film, guys. Got to remember, A New Hope was lambasted terribly.
Yep.
And Empire made less money than the first one.
Right.
Let's also not forget, this film has already made $1 billion.
That's a B, right?
Yeah, B. That's a B.
You have to
it's
do
a
the
top
thing,
$1 billion.
Death Star.
Exactly.
I'm doing quotation marks on that.
Yeah.
Lasers.
Yeah, I want sharks with freaking laser beams coming out of their head, or whatever the line was.
I can imagine that being a Kylo Ren emo anger-laced rant. I want sharks with giant laser beams attached to them.
But we got a few. We do have a few minutes. I want to give props to Kylo Ren being one of the best villains we've had in Star Wars.
In a long time.
Since Vader, right?
Yeah.
Because we had Palpatine, we had all these bounty hunters, we had the Geonosians. They're not really bad guys, but we've had a ton of mediocre bad guys. And then we had the Vader, who, you know, when used correctly, is fantastic, and he's never really wrong. They bring him back in Rebels and in very well as just a really dark presence. And Rogue One, they used him perfectly. Sense of dread and death and destruction coming your way. With Kylo Ren, I feel like they're building him up for that. Yeah. Then once he took over as Supreme Leader, he was on point. He was like, yeah, you can see the teenager in him still, like the whiny Skywalker, which is what we're gonna see because he's fucking Skywalker. But that whole scene when he's in his command ship on Crate firing on Luke Skywalker, you can see that hate building up in him, and right when Huck says, "Do you think you've got him?"
Yeah,
and he just like looks at him. He's like, "I will fucking end you right now." We also get the first Force choke we've seen on screen since Vader.
Yeah, well, Vader and Luke,
Well, we didn't see the neck pinching thing since Vader. Luke didn't do that. He just straight up Force choked fools as he walked by, right? Vader was like, we saw that in Rogue One. We saw that in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And then Kylo does it. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So
Kylo for the win.
So for anyone complaining about Snoke being killed off, look, we traded up as far as villains go. We got we got a way much more compelling character. If you're
unstable villain,
much more unstable villain. And Snoke, I mean, he was a carbon copy of the Emperor to begin with. I was never interested in Snoke. I never had any Snoke theories. I was phoning it in whenever we were talking about it. And
we only talked about it because it was fun. I honestly didn't care about Snoke.
It's just trying to find the most bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, I liked my theory of a small deaf or a small naked beast up guy in a little ship. That was my thing.
And also, if you're upset about Snoke backstory, you're not entitled to it in the first place. They'll probably do a joke about it. So if I could just
we weren't entitled to the Emperor backstory until we got the prequels.
Exactly. There you go. And sometimes you don't want to know where they came from. It might be a mediocre movie. Yeah. So as far as Snoke goes, to quote Jack Nicholson's Joker, "I'm glad you're dead."
Touche. Well, I think that's going to have to do it. We're nearly out of time. But thank you guys for coming to the very first DeathStryke podcast.
This is fun.
Yay.
Trashing the fanboys and hump boys and girls. No, I do girls like it too. Star Wars is for everybody, unfortunately. In a good way, because sometimes people need to have their toys taken away to realize what they're actually missing. So
I would agree.
Yeah. With that being said, guys, thank you guys so much. I'm like looking at a camera, but we don't have a camera. Well, we have one, but it's not on. Thank you guys so much. We'll be doing more of these hopefully in the future. Maybe once a week, every 2 weeks, sometime.
Whenever we all have time.
At least once a month, we got to do this. It'll be up on the channel under DeathStryke Podcast. And with that, guys, we are gonna be out. Peace.